today's video I'll show you one of the weirdest commissions I've done in a long time that will make you feel tingles in your body. So the client came to me with this brief. I want to get the bronze tier of your commission soon of my OC getting drunk at a beach. I will warn you now that she's incredibly stacked, so prepare for that, lol. Alright. I was intrigued, to say the least. So let's just fast forward to when they sent the full info and see what it's all about. Alright, I want the commission to be of my OC enjoying a drunk night with a man-eating plant she nursed to sentience. This is a ref. You can dress her however and use the sketch as loosely as you want. My channel will finally undie with prime clickbait like this. So an important factor I had to account for was the NSFW aspect to this, because my previous art toasting video got demonetized for just having somebody submit a drawing of a woman with a big booty. It wasn't even like explicit, it was just a little suggestive, so I'm not even gonna show the reference for this character. You can just imagine the boobs being the size of almost the whole torso. So incredibly stacked is an understatement for real. But they also sent a sketch to visualize what they had in mind for this particular piece, like the pose and such, and the character's size was toned down a fair bit. Unfortunately, I forgot to record the section where I created a rough sketch to plan out the composition. Some things I figured out on this test canvas were the pose of the character and the perspective. When I added in the plant, I realized it would be fun to make it sort of lean in toward the character so that the pot is off the ground on one side and the body of the plant moves in this curved shape to create this diagonal flow in the image. So it starts with the head of the plant, then moves toward the face of the character, towards the chest, toward the wine glass. So yeah, that's the focus, just like that, figured out. So with all that prep work out the way, I created a new canvas and started off on the real deal. First thing we gotta do is throw in a perspective guide to visualize the space that the scene will be occupying. I had taken a reference photo of myself for the pose of the legs. Just a pose, because my legs are skinny and this character is thick. If you need reference for things you cannot shoot yourself, the best way to acquire those is through Graphic Studio's extensive library of reference photo packs created for artists just like you and me. If you want to support the channel, check them out in the description below. Thanks to the prep canvas I had made earlier, I knew exactly what type of pose I was going for and was able to sketch it fairly clean right away. I wanted her head to be tilted away slightly from the camera to sort of make room for the head of the plant between her shoulder and her jaw, while pulling on it with her hand at the same time. This is a drunk scene after all, and we gotta have something to indicate that, other than just the wine glass alone. I actually kinda like how the facial expression turned out. These lower angles are still tough for me, but I've gotten way better at it over time and understand the logic, but even so, sometimes it just ends up looking like ass. But this was one of the better ones, successful attempts. For the pot of the plant, I threw in a simple primitive 3D shape to get the angle right away without any hassle, because the perspective is kind of wide angle and starts getting weird. I forgot to search up any references for the plant and was just freestyling it here straight from my head, adding these random spikes on the body of it because it's dangerous. Something that deserves its own line art layer though is the hands. I see hands as a very important part of any character drawing since they express emotions just as much as the face does, and it helps tell a story. Now I don't know why, but I felt like I wanted a 3D model for the wine glass as well, just to be able to place it in her hand properly. I guess I could have taken a reference for that myself as well, since I still feel like what I ended up with here feels a little unnatural, but I will simply excuse it with the drunkenness factor, so that's amazing. Time for the outfit though. It's actually rather simple, just like a corset type thing, and some stockings and gloves. I gave them some detailed areas like the ribbons and laces to balance out the simplicity and plainness elsewhere. I took the time to give the carnivore plant a little bit of a makeover as well, because as I said, I didn't look up references earlier, but I now did and was able to refine it a little more. I thought I was on track to finish it on time, but then realized there isn't anything going on in the background. But yeah, I just ended up following what the commissioner sent me with their draft, so it's kind of like just an empty room with some curtains on the other side. It's kind of weird, but I don't know, the background wasn't really a priority. With that done, it was time to send the sketch to the client for review. Luckily, they enjoyed it as is. Something they pointed out though was that I didn't have to go so hard with the outfit design and could have done a simple shirt and pants instead to save myself the trouble, but I don't really see the logic. Like, where's the fun in that? Why would you commission somebody to get something boring done late? However, as for the background, turns out they were expecting it to be a sort of a garden, which does make sense, but I'm not sure why they didn't specify that earlier. So I asked them to send some references for the type of stuff they had in mind, and they sent me these 4 images that they liked, which I would then extract some elements from. I had the timer paused during this because I wasn't really on the canvas and I only track raw canvas time. But yeah, I just took some of the indoor garden elements like the full height windows for the wall behind her, some shelves with potted plants on the other wall, as well as the type of a brick wall. No time to really do much more with the background because of the 3-hour timer. I was starting to feel the pressure from having to draw the background changes because the timer was tightening up. With a perspective ruler, it's not really too complicated, but it's still takes time to get the spatial relations in the scene right. For example, I realized I was making the wall behind her too long and had to erase this far segment of it out. I quickly hopped on Blender to make a flower pot, which I would use for the plants, on the wall shelf at the back. It's simple cylindrical forms, which aren't too hard to draw without guides, but I still felt like using 3D, because it saves me the hassle of trying to get the angles right on the top halves of the pot. When drawing in some actual plants in the pots, I was really starting to question if this is the most time-efficient method to do so. Maybe just using a brush with pressure size turned on would have been better, but it would have been an even bigger waste of time to switch methods in the middle drawings. Okay, so line's done with 52 minutes remaining on the clock. Yeah, the lines turned out pretty acceptable, but it's time to move on to the... When doing the flat colors, I was really starting to speed run this whole thing. My hands were getting sweaty from rapidly trying to hit the correct shortcut keys on my macro pad, and I was leaning forward towards my monitor aggressively, looking like a whole ass goblin. Not too much thought was put into the coloring of the background. Just wanted to have it out of the way so that I could start on the character. Through a lot of repetition and practice, I've gotten better at making steady selections with the lasso tool, so in 2023 that has been my main coloring method. It is faster than using a brush manually, and cleaner than using the magic wand tool. It was still looking a bit bland with everything filled in, but I remembered I was gonna do like a brick wall behind her, so I just took on that task with like the perspective ruler. There's probably like a faster method to do it, but I just used like an eraser to erase out parts of the vertical lines. Anyway, this is your reminder to rename your layers, kids. When they start piling up, you know it's time to rename. At this point, I was fairly certain I'd have to add some extra time on the timer, but kept speed running regardless. To get a clear overview of the shading, I usually hide the colors temporarily. I thought it would make sense to add a kind of regular diagonal top light on the character, because it just makes sense for this indoor garden type scene. I'm spreading it over the walls as well. I'm using this circular gradient to throw in some evenly fading light over the back wall, and erasing out the part under the shelf to give it a shadow. Repeating the same thing on a floor as well, and then tinting everything yellow to give this like an indoor late night look. But back to the character, I had thought mostly about the big shapes earlier when doing the shading, and went back to refine the smaller ones. I'm using an eraser and a blend tool here mostly, but some areas also called for more brushing. Only 9 minutes remaining, and I was real sweaty at this point, trying to do everything as fast as humanly possible. I mean, I wasn't actually sweaty, but my mind was completely funneled in on this shit. No distractions. But yeah, that's the primary light source on the character done. 3 minutes left, and I threw in some lines on the floor to mark the side planes of the floor tiling, and used a big soft eraser to blend it in proper with the rest. Adds a lot of life instantly. 1.5 minutes left, and I started throwing in some ambient shadows with a big softy, tossing it in the corners and underneath objects. Adds depth to the scene pretty easily, but yeah, the timer was running out, and that's as much as I was able to accomplish within the 3-hour mark. It's kind of solid actually, but it's not really finished looking enough, so I decided to add 30 extra minutes on the clock, and also prepared a little list of shit I thought I should accomplish during these 30 minutes. So let's get it. Secondary light pass. The purpose of this is to fill in areas untouched by the primary light, and to give the forms more definition. It should be kind of faded though, since it is secondary for a reason. Occlusion on the character. The purpose of this is to increase the sense of depth and it's my favorite part of the process, as you all know by now. I'm an ambient occlusion junkie. It's like salt and pepper of digital art. It just always works. I'm using my go-to combo of the lasso tool and a big soft brush to accomplish this all. Almost half the time gone and the list is still kind of long, so wine glass. Wine glass. That shit was hiding in plain sight the whole time and is an integral part of the story after all. I don't know how I forgot about it for so long, but yeah, nothing really fancy going on here. Just made sure the reflections on the glass look like reflections and that there's something inside of it as well, so it's not empty. Plan time? Just needed some more refinement on the light pass and some detailing here. Nothing more really. Highlight pass. Alright, so it's fun time, everybody's favorite part, but it's not as satisfying as doing ambient occlusion for me. That still wins. I'm adding reflections in the middle of the primary light areas to create a sense of reflection of the light source to varying degrees of strength on different surfaces. I kind of just forgot about the timer at this stage and just rendered random areas like the face of the character to get it to look a little more refined. I had the outside world behind the window marked in my list as well. I randomly got the idea to add reflections in the window to not really have to render anything that's actually outside. And that worked out kind of nicely actually, because the reflections are kind of blurred and wonky, but it still works. It's color dodge time. But yeah, we're done here, boys and girls and gals. We're done here. Big succubus, drunkubus has been achieved, and my commissions are open. As always, you could get your own video made like this, so check the info and prices down in the link below. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace!
Buy my shirts right now, or else.
Bruh, check out my SoundCloud.
Hey kid, wanna buy some reference packs? I got you covered, fam.
Long unedited time lapse of this drawing available on my second channel.